In the light of my magic, I could see the stairs ahead turn sharply, before doubling back on themselves and sinking deeper even into the gloom. Above, an ambient red light was accompanied by the faint whirring of a motor as the turn slowly rotated, just as lost as all the others. With a swift flash of magical energy, the turn emits and with a grinding spark, illuminating the darkness, it fell, rattling the metal staircase and igniting a sharp "eep" from Cherry. Somewhere in the shadows behind me, I shifted the sparking wreckage aside before rounding the corner. While behind me I could hear my companion poke a hoof at the metals and wires, undoubtedly searching for more bargaining materials. A part of me imagined just how much opponent it could gain if they managed to make a profit on every little thing they found, while another part of me demanded that I remain focused. I was in a dark room, in a dangerous place, with Celestia knew what else. For once, I had decided my instincts. They hadn't kept me alive in the wasteland for so long because I ignored them. Sub-level 2, the next sign read as I passed through the double doors as the bottom of the stairs. Beyond was yet another long, gloomy corridor. It was both fortunate and unnerving that the number of targets displayed on my visor remained at 0. All of a sudden there was a bright flash, and several lights flickered to life. Many popped and smashed, sending a wave of shock and terror through me as I jumped back, my rump hitting the door as Cherry came through. I gasped, cursing every pony who ever lived for making such unreliable things as light bulbs. I realized that Cherry had backpedaled up the stairs slightly, and I looked back to see the mare slightly stunned, her eyes wide with confusion. I winced, knowing I'd practically just flung my tail in her face. Sorry, I stammered weakly, trying not to make the situation any more awkward. Raider victim, no touchy. My mind remained me swiftly, shaking its metaphorical head in disappointment. Um, no, I should have watched where I was going. I'm sorry. Cherry stammered, her face reddening deeply. She rubbed the forehoof on the back of her neck, her eyes darting about for anything that could change the subject. Finding my own blush, I readily obliged, turning forward again as if nothing had transpired. Fucking wasteland. I grumbled sourly under my breath as his sinister entity sought to turn something as simple as a light bulb against me in a way that then involved killing. Those same lights now lit the corridor ahead. I had a strange sensation that somebody was watching us, playing with us. Maybe it was a ghost. My mind suggested in a vain attempt at a scary tone. No, brain, ghosts don't exist, I mumbled to my wild thoughts. It was then I noticed that this situation was, in fact, very strange. Following the lights had came on, I realized that not all had done so. In fact, those which had not exploded now formed a glowing trail leading into a room right up the hall. Peering through a set of reinforced windows, I could see what appeared to be a large laboratory of some kind. Row after row of long tables stretched across the room, all lined with shattered glass and aged lab equipment. That didn't disturb me much, however. No, what did was the fact that most of the room was still swarming with murky darkness, the light trail continuing through an open door on the opposite side. The lights were tempting us forwards. Both the door and the wall it was set into were formed from thick metal, covered by fine white paint only on the exposed sides, as if to look like something normal. This room had been quite secure back when it was in use, and I couldn't help but feel that had been for a reason. Now it was open, and I had a nagging fear that we were not only being watched but led somewhere. Ghosts aren't real, I shouted mentally, taking a tentative step inside. Like the corridor above, the room looked as if it had been subjected to its own personal apocalypse. Underhoof, The shattered remains of glass jars and age-old stains covered the cracked tile floor. Rows of still intact glass vials and test tubes sat on the table. Most were lined with dark-colored coats, demonstrating the effect a few hundred years would have on whatever they had once held. The same grimy residue formed thick puddles of bile in the larger glasses and bowls that sat below the many elaborate laboratory contraptions, the sheer amount of which formed a vast sprawl of rubber pipes and valves far beyond my comprehension. I understood the many rough scribbles and notes scattered atop the desk even less so. Further down was a set of old petri dishes and scalpels, along with other delicate utensils. Sat beside them was an old medical crate, a traditional yellow box bearing pink butterflies that any Westlanders fought not to squeal over. Opposite was a long-dead terminal, its screen shattered and full with more dust than circuits. Several tools lay scattered before it, as if somebody had been trying to work with this thing. Among them was a screwdriver, wiring kit, and an open pack of menthols. Well, somebody was sure having a bad day if they needed one of these things, I remarked. I was feeling sorry for the maintenance pony whose taxing work had amounted for nothing. My attention didn't linger as I heard fidgeting behind me and turned to see the medical box open. Rather focused Cherry surveying its contents.
Bandages, a healing potion, more bandages, and yes!
The pink mare seemed all too happy about something that wasn't potentially life-saving medical supplies, as she drew out several bobby pins. She looked over each of them as if there was something I couldn't see in the little pieces of metal.
Now all I need to do is this,
she added triumphantly, looking up and reaching out a hoof for one of the tools before the terminal, the screwdriver. I stepped out of her way. Once again, she was like a filly in the candy shop. Only now she knew exactly what she was after. Setting my weapon down on the desk behind me, I levitated the few medical supplies she uncovered into my bags.
I was gonna take those,
she said, looking back as if she knew the error in leaving such important supplies behind and was only now realizing it. I retrieved my weapon a moment later. I think you'll have enough with all the stuff you plan to sell, I told her, glancing to her bats. One of them looked full to bursting. She smiled slightly, seemingly a little embarrassed. In truth, her look was too cute for me to stomach for more than a few moments without saying something I knew I'd regret. To save myself any potential embarrassment, I turned as swiftly as I could and continued along the row of desks. That's when my eyes fell on a set of scales, upon which was a rock. It was a blend like any rock one would see in the wasteland. Yet, as I examined it closer, I quite clearly saw that it was far from normal. It was a deep silver, but as the light shimmered across its surface, it flickered from purple to deep blue. Probably just another crazy experiment, I know bluntly. But as I passed it, but my attention fell on something I found far harder to ignore. An arm? It certainly looked like an arm, especially the way it was supported on what appeared to be a custom-made stand. It was not like any pony arm, however, more like that of a hellhound, minus the claws, as what I perceived to be the hand of was missing. It wasn't that big either, and appeared to be formed from hollow bones. It was comprised of three distinctive parts: an upper bone, an elbow, and the lower piece, all of which were supposed to look like they were still encased in flesh. All the things I knew about bones, however, I knew they were not supposed to be like this. Were bones supposed to be hollow? Okay, so I knew next to nothing of skeletons, but that was not the kicker. Each segment was made from the same strange shimmering silver I just glimpsed at.
looks like some sort of exoskeleton,
Cherry commented, trying up beside me, her saddlebags clattering with her new prizes. An exoskeleton? I had seen the gray-maned creatures with a similar body design in my time, not that I knew what it meant beyond a hard shell. On top of that were a number of wires and electronic equipment plunged into the interior of this metal exoskeleton. I swear it looked as if these ponies were trying to make an evil wire monster or something. I have no idea what it is, I told my companion bluntly. My mind was more focused on the fact that with the previous observation, she was clearly a smarter pony than me, or just had freaking knowledge about strange mechanical exoskeletons. I sighed. Couldn't I see her as a normal self all the time? A moment later, I realized just how horribly selfish that was. She, on the other hand, merely shrugged, oblivious to my mental conflict as she glared at the strange metal limb curiously. She wanted to take it, didn't she? I sighed once more. That thought brought a brief evaluation on just how hard the thing would be to remove. The whole lab seemed to be focused on the exoskeleton, as there appeared to be no more grand acquaintances of the larger silver metal about us. I tried it away a moment later. Besides its strange appearance, the thing was giving me the creeps, as if some cold aura swirled around it. The real creeps, I might add. Not the type that revolves around a stupid ghost story, and for all my caution was worth, it seemed mutual. Cherry followed me away from the thing, her eyes focused on anything else she could scavenge. She was definitely a smart pony because, to be honest, I didn't think the ponies who built this place knew what that thing was either. Sub-level 3, the next sign proclaimed as we entered from another set of increasingly chilly stairs. The almost identical corridor beyond was no warmer either, nor did the sight seize the unnerving feeling in my gut. We'd only seen one other turn on the stairs, similar to the last one. Once again, it wasn't hostile. Regardless of the place's eerie hospitality, I felt like one of the least inviting places I'd ever come across. I couldn't help but get the feeling somebody wanted us here. It was becoming increasingly hard to shun the idea of some supernatural entity from my thoughts as we passed deeper. Above us, mandated lights still functioned, clearly marking the pathway. This time, they directed us directly ahead. On this floor, the walls had also changed. They were cold and white, unusually clean. The prissy ghosts, my mind taunted with a vile snicker. Underhoofed, the black floor was clear enough to show my faint reflection. Doors lined the walls, each leading off into an old lab room similar to that above. Only these ones looked as if the workers had left only yesterday. Most unnerving of all was the persistent lack of anything. Wastelandy. There's no clutter, no bones, and no hostiles. So why was I so discouraged? This place seemed to be willing to do nothing more than love and tolerate the shit out of us. Like some creepy enchantress inviting a fool into her home, only to bake them up into a big tasty stew later. That was not the best image I could have given my mind to chew on, but as we arrived at the end of the corridor, I was swiftly distracted. A fine film of plastic sheets separated from a large chamber beyond. What appeared to be some sort of service elevator to the surface had tracks leading up into a large, rounded tunnel to my left. To my right was what I assumed to be the last of its cargo. They were mostly steel crates bearing the common tail Destiny Corporation logo. In the center of the large chamber, the tracks led to the elevator itself. A large metal desk sunk into the concrete floor. A control panel stood on the far side, a guardrail separating any wandering pony from the massive hydraulics that were barely visible below. The opposite sides of the room each held doorways. Running along the smooth concrete wall above were vertical lights hanging from long strands of wire. I had a vague reminder of my trip back in the ammunition factory as I saw the remnants of a catwalk suspended up there with them. Set into the wall itself, however, were smaller lights, the glowing lights of which beckoned me like a moth to a flame. They led towards a larger doorway opposite the elevator shaft. Above it were 3 turrets, all of which were friendly. I scowled, unable to figure out which I found worse. Friendly turrets or disabled turrets? This appeared to be drooping lazily, unlike their lost cousins above. Making sure I had eyes on all possible defenses, I traveled into the room and around the crates, following the trail of the lights and making sure my blaster was locked onto the inactive guns. Corridor 23B was written in big black text above the larger rectangular entrance to the tunnel. Set into the walls were the thick mechanical workings of some sort of door, as well as a peculiar effect in the air. I squinted, eyes narrowing as I tried to make it out. It looked as if the light about the door frame were dancing. My first instincts told me it was a gas leak, yet there was no scent suggesting such a hazard.
What is it?
Cherry asked, seeming to notice my cautious stupor. I paused, thinking for a moment. Wait here a second, I instructed cautiously, taking a step into the doorway. There was nothing, just a distortion of the air. My mind wouldn't simply rest at that and not, oh, something was wrong. This whole place was off. Then it happened. As Sherry stepped forward into the doorway, there was a bright flash of light. In an instant, the wall of distorted air lit up the whole entrance with orange light. The pink mare fell back on her haunches as if she'd walked right into a solid wall. A shield of some kind. But just a moment ago, I didn't even have time to think about that. Cherry! I called out as the mare staggered about on the floor. I bolted forward. In the same instant, the mechanical door forced itself shut with a whoosh and loud clang, sealing her away. I slammed face first into the newly erected metal, before falling back in my rump as my magic imploded. Cherry! I whimpered, as my mind struggled to catch up to what had just transpired. In that moment it did, and almost instinctively I reared up, banging my forehooves upon the metal as hard as I could. No! What the fuck? No! I cursed as I brought my hooves down against the door over and over. The thick metal merely seemed to ring with laughter as my futile attempts to open it. I met the metal image of its smug face with a shot from my sound blaster, and when that failed to even tickle it, it found itself fall victim to several bolts of plasma. That did nothing more than turn the metal hot, singeing my hoods as I gave it one last buck. I winced and fell into my haunches once more, panting heavily. What the fuck? What the fuck? I screamed through my heavy exertions. The door wasn't budging. I looked to my armored forehooves, massaging them as the force of several hard impacts, not to mention the heat of the last finally caught up with me. Still don't believe in ghosts? My mind snickered. It growled both in my head and at the door. Then ignoring the painful sting in my hooves, I stood, gathering my weapons once again. Somebody, not a fucking ghost, was watching us. Somebody who wanted to separate us. I was going to have a serious talk with this Sunpony. Who are you? You fucker! I called angrily into the gloomy corridor ahead. My mind summoned up mental images of a million foul things crawling out of the gloom towards me. In reality, all I got was a sharp pop as the light above the door to my right flickered to life. Still playing that game, aren't we? I asked myself. Yeah, but if that Sunpony so much as put a scratch on either of my friends, I'd blast them to the fucking moon. Food no. Level up. Companion perk added. Cherry pin. One pony's trash is another's treasure. Your new companion seems to have the talent and confidence to make a profit from anything. Here's hoping they're right. Prices are reduced by 5% when traveling with this companion.